Okay, this is going to be the top 10 figures I reviewed in 2022. Um, I know some other YouTubers do the top 10 dinosaur figures that came out in the year, but I'm not going to do that because I mainly get a lot of older figures. And I also considered doing like just the top 10 figures I got in the year. It might have even said that I was going to do that at some point, but I don't really think that's fair to do that kind of video because with me getting a lot of figures for like Christmas, there might be like some recency bias. I don't really think I would have recency bias, but just with them being on the top of the head, and some of the figures me getting like over 6 months ago, it would just kind of seem unfair as far as that. Um, and also with like just not having some of the figures long enough, I've just not really had enough time to enjoy them. Like some of the beasts in the Mesozoic dromaeosaurs, like I'll get one right here just to prove the point. The Xenuan long here is still in the box, so I just don't think it would be fair to do a video like that whenever I literally still have some of the figures in the box. Uh, and so I've decided to do the top 10 figures I reviewed in 2022. Some of these review videos themselves are way better than others, in my opinion, though. Like the most recent one, like the Safari LTD Tyrannus video, I think is much better than the Schleich Baryonyx video. And this isn't like not ranking the videos themselves, though. This is ranking the figures themselves. In total, I reviewed 16 figures this year. Pretty good considering I did a lot of other videos on the channel that weren't individual figure reviews. And I started this channel later in the year, but I think I definitely could have done more, and definitely plan on doing more reviews this year. And in my review videos, I go over information about the animal. I go over the figure itself as far as inaccuracies or features I personally like, including the colors. In this list, though, it's not based on accuracy or any like grade, like I like this part and this part and this part. It's just personal opinion. Like it can be just because like I really liked how I got this figure, or it was a challenge to get, and that's why this figure is such a favorite, something like that. And this list though is not based on, like I said, any accuracy though. So, like this Tylosaurus here not having a tail fluke, that's not going to be a big knock on it, unless that's just something I personally really like about it or whatever. Um, and also, I want to state this: I clearly really like each of the figures on this list because I went all the way out of my way to buy the figure for one, and then I chose to make an individual figure review over the figure whenever I've gotten a lot of figures throughout the years. So, if a figure got a review, it was clearly one I really liked. So even though some of these didn't even make the top 10, I really like them all a lot. So first we're going to go over the honorable mentions. So as far as the honorable mentions, any figure that didn't make the top 10 itself is going to be mentioned here in the honorable mention. And in this part, I'm going to mention the reasons why they did not qualify for the top 10. So first, I don't love the frill on this figure. It like how it's not like actually stuck on. I don't like how it's like not really locked in. And I know that's so that way you can take it off and stuff, but I would honestly just rather it not have the option and just be in there. But I know that's kind of like the deal with it being an action figure, but that is a personal knock for me. And like I said, this is all personal ranking, so if you personally like that, it's nothing against you or anything. It's just my personal opinion on it. And also, this is the only Jurassic Park figure I reviewed, and personally, I like more accurate style figures over Jurassic Park style figures. So that's not a plus for me, really. I mean, there will be some figures like next year. I'll review that Hammond Collection Rex, and I definitely expect it to be on the top 10, unless something I'll just get a ton of really really good figures. But I 100% at this current moment expect that Hammond Collection Rex to be in the top 10. But for this one specifically, and speaking about the Hammond Collection Rex, I personally just think having it now as well, I just think it's such a better figure that it honestly kind of knocks this figure by it just being so much better. And I know it's a $50 figure and this is a $12 figure, but still. I just think that this is a really good figure, but it's just, and I mean, there's a reason I went out of my way to review it, but I definitely think there's better figures I reviewed over the year. Next, we have the Carnegie Acrocanthosaurus. You will notice there's a lot of Safari LCDs, like including the Safari regular line, the Carnegie Collection, and Field Museum line in this video, because Safari is probably my personal favorite brand. In fact, I recently ordered a lot that I have sitting right beside me that's going to be a really soon upcoming video. But this figure, I really like this figure, but it's got one huge problem with it that like you can't really overlook, and it's the head. The head's just completely inaccurate. If the figure would just have a slightly different head, because I'm fine with the rest of the body. Like the tail, I know probably shouldn't be on the ground, but the head is just such a big knock for me, having such an inaccurate head. But this is actually one of the first figures I reviewed this year, either this one or the Schleich Baryonyx, which we will be going over very soon. But I really like this figure, but that head is such a knock that I can't put it in the top 10. Next up, we have the Schleich Baryonyx. This is a figure I really like. It's actually one of the more recent Schleich figures that I've picked up that I really, really like. But Schleich's best stuff usually is beat out by Safari Ltd. For me, personally. And I definitely see the charm with Schleich and why people like it. I mean, I personally do like it a lot as well. And I really like this figure, but there was just some other figures on this list that I prefer over this figure. Not saying this is a bad figure by any means, like I said, but I definitely prefer a few figures on this list, but this one is really good. Next up, we have a figure that has grown on me a lot. I actually really like this figure. This is the Safari Ltd. Dino Dana Nano Tyrannus. And this figure does have a few problems with me. For one, it's got a few standing issues. Like, unless you've got to like really get it situated for it to stand up, and if you like barely tip it, it'll usually fall over because its feet just are a little not perfect. And also, it just being Nano Tyrannus, obviously, with all the controversy behind that, it's kind of a knock. And then the lack of feathers. And the only reason why I'm really saying the lack of feathers is the adult version of this one does have feathers. And if anything, I would think it would be the exact opposite, where Nano or Juvenile Rex would have feathers while the adult wouldn't. But they have the adult version of this figure having feathers, so it's kind of weird. For the Juvenile to not, it just doesn't really make a ton of sense to me as far as that. And I know that was all on Dino Dana, not on Safari, but it's personally just a little weird to me as far as that. So I do really like this figure though. Like I said, it's grown on me, but it does have some problems that definitely put it out of the top 10 for me. Next, we have the Safari Ltd. Chansusaurus. I really like this figure a lot, but it just personally didn't make my top 10. But I do really, really like this figure. And I don't really have a good reason for why it's out of the top 10, other than I just personally prefer a few other figures ahead of it. But like I said, I do really, really like this figure. And for the last figure to not make the top 10 itself, I have the Terra by Battat Acropanthosaurus. If one figure in this top 10 wasn't there, this one would have made the top 10. I really love this figure. I like the body, I like the colors, but I don't love the pose. And I feel like the legs seem a little short. Maybe they're not, but just compared to some other reconstructions and other figures of Acropanthosaurus, the legs seem a little small to me, but maybe they're not. Maybe it's just where they're in this pose that makes them appear smaller, but I really like this figure, even with the stuff I just said. But it did have a really tough, this one or number 10, I really debated on, so if somebody could very easily convince me this one or number 10. Next up, we have the figure that made the top 10, the first figure in it. At number 10, the Safari Dinosaurus. This is a really great figure, definitely deserving of the top 10, but I prefer the upcoming 9 figures more. And really, the only thing that I can really say that it's really a knock to me on this figure is I personally would have rather seen them go a more duck-like color scheme, something like a mallard duck. I think would have looked really good. And I don't dislike this color scheme, but I just think that would have looked better. But I definitely like it a lot. And like I said, the only reason this one's not higher, and even if it did have that color scheme, it might have not been much higher, but I really like this figure a lot. At number 9, we have the Safari Ltd. Tyrannus. This is a really awesome figure that I really like. But I prefer some of the figures more, and the ease of getting this actually kind of knocks it down a spot, which I will explain in better whenever we get to the Safari Ltd. Albertosaurus. But yeah, I'll just kind of explain that better then, so I don't have to explain it like 3 times. But honestly, some of these figures being a little bit harder to get makes them more enjoyable to finally get in hand, which I'll explain a lot better when we get to that Albertosaurus figure. But I really do like this figure a lot. I love the color scheme. I love the like skull, or like the head shape, and like the spots that have feathers and the spots that specifically don't have feathers I think look really good. So I just think this is a really good overall figure that I wanted for a while and was so glad to finally get and review. Next at number 8 we have the Carnegie Collection Corythosaurus. This is a really amazing figure. And I don't really have a good reasoning for the placement here. I really like this figure a lot, but I think the top 7, I'd prefer all of those to this one. But I don't prefer any of the figures below it to it. But I really like this figure. I really like the color scheme, even though I've heard some people consider that one of its knocks. But I do really like this figure. And kind of like a few of the other figures I mentioned, I don't really have a great reason why the placement is here, but I really like this figure a lot. Number 7, we have the Carnegie Collection Dinosaurus. I really love this figure because it represents Dinosaurus very well, and I really like Dinosaurus a lot. But this figure itself, it's not that much different from just like an alligator figure, which really, that's what it should look like. But because some of the other figures, look like stuff that we don't have anything even similar to like today, it's kind of a knock. But like I said, this is a great representation of Dinosaurus for a figure as old as this one is, but I can't have it much higher just because of that. But I really love this figure. This was one of the first figures I got. I think this was the first figure I got during this like channel run. This is actually the worst condition version I got, but this was the first version of it I got. I hate how the review turned out of this video for this one though, after looking back on it, because the lighting is so horrible whenever I did that video. So hopefully I get a new Dinosaurus figure in the future, so that way we can go back over Dinosaurus, so that way this figure can be featured in some better lighting. Like, it looks, I think, great compared to the individual figure review right now, but the individual figure review definitely doesn't look as good as I wish that video would have. I do want to mention right here that 3 through 6 is pretty much interchangeable. The top 6 is where it gets really tough, and this group was very hard to rank, so the ranking could be very easily be changed. So we'll get right into it here with number 6. Number 6, we have the Safari Ltd. Albertosaurus. And if it wasn't for the Carnegie Collection Albertosaurus, which will be coming up, this figure would be higher. I really do love this figure though, and it is probably honestly better than the Carnegie one as far as accuracy, but the journey or the process of getting that figure puts it higher. But I really do love this figure. I love Albertosaurus, and it's an amazing representation of but honestly, the ease of getting this figure is kind of a reason it's lower on the list. This is what I was mentioning earlier, but since I had to like go months like trying to find the Carnegie Collection Albertosaurus, it made it so rewarding to get that figure. But this one, where whenever I saw it got announced by Safari, I was able to order it from Safari's website, and then I got it. It was just so easy that it wasn't as rewarding feeling, even though I do think this is a better figure overall and looks great. And I'm so glad to have it because I think it pairs so well with that Albertosaurus. But honestly, like I said, the ease of getting this figure with it not having to be, because really all I had to do was wait for them to finally put it on the website. So, but I'm so glad to have it. And honestly, as far as just the figure itself, it probably should be number 1, but just the ease of getting this figure honestly kind of knocked it. Now at number 5, we have the Beast of the Mesozoic, Zuniceratops. This was my first Beast of the Mesozoic figure, and I really love this figure, not only just because it's a Beast of the Mesozoic figure, but because it's Zuniceratops. And I've always really liked Zuniceratops because of When Dinosaurs Roamed America, the Discovery documentary, and I really like that one. That's one that I watched when I was younger. But also, like I said, it being a Beast of the Mesozoic figure definitely helps this figure because it's just so awesome. I've said this in any video that I've gotten Beast of Mesozoic figures, I think, but getting articulated figures, it's crazy, because it seemed like for the longest time you couldn't get articulated figures, or if you did, they were Jurassic Park. And I made it kind of clear on here that I definitely like articulation on figures, but I'm not the biggest Jurassic Park fan, so I've mainly just leaned Safari figures for the majority of the time I've collected figures, just because I'm not the biggest Jurassic fan. But I've mentioned, I really like the Jurassic series overall, but I prefer accurate dinosaur figures to Jurassic series figures. At number 4, we have the Carnegie Collection Tylosaurus. This is one of those amazing Carnegie figures that you just really want to have in a collection. I love this figure, but I've already mentioned, I think, once in this video, that it has one major inaccuracy, being the tail fluke. Tylosaurus and Mosasaurus in general, we know now, would have a tail fluke instead of this eel-like tail. But I love how this figure looks, and even though it's not as accurate as it could be, I still love this figure. I think it looks great. The colors are awesome. It's just such an awesome looking figure, and even though it does have that one major inaccuracy, it still easily makes this top 4. And like I said, this 6 through 3 group, really the 6 through 2 group, I think you could easily convince me otherwise. Like that Albertosaurus, I think you could put over this figure, but then again, I mean, the Tylosaurus is ranked ahead of it right now for a reason. So, you know, I definitely really love this figure a lot, and I love this olivey goldish green on it, and just the black stripes with the white belly. It's a super believable color scheme in my opinion, and I just love how this figure turned out. And I'm, once again, so glad to add this figure. And what I was saying about one of those great Carnegie figures or amazing Carnegie figures, the more recent Carnegie figures, like as far as the ones they released the last like 15 years, I'm not sure this was actually in that group, but right around that group, or the last 20 years the Carnegie Collection was in running, those were some of the best figures I think that we ever have and maybe will ever have as far as dinosaur figures. And I definitely think this one belongs right in that group because it is an awesome figure for any collection. Top 3. Wow, we're at number 3, and we have the Safari Ltd. Gryposaurus or Griposaurus. I've heard both ways, and I've still not heard a definitive way to say it, but this is an amazing figure, and the story of how I got it is honestly one of the reasons it's higher on this list, because I think if I could only have one of this figure or the Safari Ltd. Albertosaurus, I'd probably pick the Safari Ltd. Albertosaurus, but for how I got this figure and the like expectation of not being able to get this figure definitely made it one that I'm so glad to have. And I'll explain really quickly here how I got this figure, but you can watch the individual figure, or you can watch the individual figure review that I'll put in the playlist link where you can find it. Pretty much how I got this figure. I'd seen this figure for a while, and whenever I found more about this dinosaur, I realized I really wanted to get a figure of it. And then whenever I saw Safari was no longer making it, but realized it was retired fairly recently, I started looking on like eBay and stuff and saw that the prices were outrageous on eBay. So then I started browsing on some random websites that said they had the figure. Ended up finding, I was looking for the Safari Ltd. Ionosaurus and found a website that had this figure as well. So I ended up ordering the Ionosaurus and the Gryposaurus from a Canadian website. And I think both are now sold out, unfortunately, but the Gryposaurus did stay up, I think, for a while. So hopefully some of you all happen to see my video and happen to get this figure as well. But I think this is an awesome, awesome figure. And what's funny is this figure actually came from Canada. So, and considering Gryposaurus was found in Canada, I think it was a funny little, connection. But I love this figure so much, and I'm so glad that I ended up getting 2 of them. And this one does have a slight issue with it. It's got some whitening on the nose, but I personally like it. I think it adds some character to the dinosaur. And so glad to have this figure because, like I said, I didn't think I was going to be able to get it because the prices on eBay were outrageous at the time. But I'm so glad to have it in my collection. Number 2, the Safari Ltd. Field Museum Anatotitan. This is the smallest figure I reviewed of the year, but it's still one of the best, I think. This is one of my favorite figures in my overall collection. Not as far as this year, or any specific line. This is just one of my favorite figures overall in the collection. Especially for the size, and the size being small or large can be a plus, but the details on such a small figure is insane. And I also think this is a great representation of Edmontosaurus annectens, and you might be a little confused because the figure is listed as Anatotitan, but Anatotitan is no longer valid, and this should really be Edmontosaurus annectens. And it's funny because considering it's supposed to be Anatotitan, we know it's actually supposed to be Edmontosaurus annectens because that was the one that would have lived with T-Rex. And also the Field Museum connection. If you don't know, in one of my more recent videos, I can't remember how recent it was actually. It feels like it was recent, but I went over the box set of the Field Museum set that featured Sue and the Torosaurus. I showed a picture showing when I was really, really little going to the Field Museum. The Field Museum played such a big role in my love of dinosaurs. So this figure being a part of the Field Museum set makes it easily one of my favorites. When I was originally going to do a video just going over the top 10 figures that I got in the year, I was going to just put the Field Museum spot as one of the top 10 spots because I really love all 3 of those figures. This is probably my favorite as far as just the figure overall. The Torosaurus is probably my favorite of the 3 dinosaurs just because Torosaurus is a ceratopsian you don't see a ton of figures of, even though it's a really cool one. And then Sue would have obviously got some mention just because Sue is the most memorable dinosaur. I still remember seeing the skull in a separate case, but out of the 3 figures, I think this is the best looking of the 3 figures, and Edmontosaurus has become one of my top favorite dinosaurs. I mean, two of the top 3 in this video were Hadrosaurs, which is a big testament to how awesome Hadrosaurs were. Literally, 3 of the top 10 were Hadrosaurs. Hadrosaurs, over the year, have easily become one of my favorite dinosaur groups, which is kind of funny because I know they're probably, if you put a poll, they're probably one of the lower groups. I know Theropods would probably be the favorite, and they're my personal favorite, but Hadrosaurs have become one of my favorite groups, and I'm going to have a whole video very soon dedicated to Hadrosaurs. I would expect that video to come up maybe at the end of this month or next month, but shouldn't be too long. But I can't wait to do that video because I've become such a big Hadrosaur fan, and I think Hadrosaurs are such an awesome group of dinosaurs. Number 1, we have the Carnegie Collection Albertosaurus. So if you've been watching my channel for a long time, you would have expected this figure to be number 1, and it is number 1. This is the figure that kind of got me back into collecting dinosaur figures. And what I mean, whenever I started like getting more back into dinosaur videos, and a big thanks to that is Red Raptor Rights and like Edge. I mainly got back into dinosaur figures thanks to non-dinosaur figure YouTubers, like just people that like talk about paleontology in general. And then I started like getting more back into collecting figures. And Albertosaurus had been one of my favorite dinosaurs that I just didn't have a figure of. And at the time, this was, I think, the only real Albertosaurus figure that you could get, because this was before Safari had announced the other Albertosaurus that was already in this top 10. And the Beast of the Mesozoic one, I think, had been announced, but that one's still not released yet. That one is going to be a little on the pricey side. I definitely hope to get that figure, but it's definitely not going to be a cheap figure. So this one at the time was the only one I knew was available. So I really wanted to get it, obviously. And then Safari announced theirs, and even after getting that one, I still really wanted to get this one. I can't remember really which out of those 2 I got first. I got them right around the exact same time, actually. But I love both of those figures so much, and I use them as a pair. This one being the female since it's got less bright colors, and the other being the male, almost like a cardinal. And if you know what a cardinal is, it's a bird that most people think of the red one, which is the male, and the female's like a duller brown. So that's what I use these 2 figures as. And like I said, Albertosaurus is probably either my favorite or my second favorite theropod. It and Allosaurus, the 2 crested killers. So yeah, that is my top 10 favorite theropods, or not my top 10 favorite theropods. Albertosaurus was in that video, but that was my top 10 figures I reviewed throughout the year. I think it was a great overall group, and all of these reviews will be available in a playlist that I'll link, and that will have all the figures I reviewed that were in this video, plus any that will be reviewed in the future. But yeah, I definitely think that this was a great group, and now we're going to go over some other stuff, including some figures I plan to get in the future and review in the future. So some figures I want to add to the collection in 2023 and review. This is going to be a big list, and it's going to be some stuff that is definitely going to happen and some stuff that might not happen and most likely won't happen. And I'll go over that with each one. So first is the Beast of the Mesozoic Walking with Dinosaurs T-Rex. This is the figure that I've already got ordered. It's just it coming, and it looks like it should be shipping pretty soon, because I think the last update was the US ones had came to their warehouse or whatever, so they should be shipping pretty soon. And I can't wait to get that figure. Huge Walking with Dinosaurs fan, and being a huge Beast of the Mesozoic fan, I can't wait to get that figure. It's such an awesome looking figure, and the only problem I ever had with the Walking with Dinosaurs Rex was how it looked, but I love the colors. So to get a figure of a more accurate looking and better looking T-Rex, but with the Walking with Dinosaurs color scheme, is just going to be amazing. And that's why I'm so excited for that figure. Hopefully whenever he does the Beast of the Mesozoic Allosaurus, maybe we could get a Walking with Dinosaurs color scheme of it. That would be awesome as well. But I can't wait to get this figure. Also, I would love to get a Rebor figure. Rebor is one of those big brands that I just don't have a figure of yet. And if I had to bet on a specific one, it would probably be the Grab and Go Rex, probably the one that looks like the Dinosaur Revolution version. But Rebor, some of their figures become really hard to get, and some are, I think, easier, and some are way more pricey than others. So I don't really know how likely it's going to be to get some Rebor figures. But if I had to say a specific one, that would probably be what I would bet on. But I will say I've recently seen their Dinosaurus figures, and they look really good, and they're really big, and they don't seem too badly priced. The only problem is there's 2 different color variants, which I know that's kind of a good thing because you can kind of pick which one, but I like both the color variants, so I just don't know which one I would pick out of the 2, so that's my only problem with that one. But if I had to bet, it would be the grab-and-go Rex. And then I'd really like to get an Argentinosaurus figure. That's one of my favorite dinosaurs that I just don't have a figure of yet. I might get the Collect Day one, but maybe this year, like Safari or somebody will announce one, and I'll order that one instead. But I could definitely get the Collect Day one, and I really like the Collect Day one, so that wouldn't be an issue. But maybe, maybe Safari announces one, and I might get the Safari one, but I would be completely fine with the Collect Day one. And then Nanosaurus, this is the one that I was mentioning, is very unlikely, and I'm not expecting, because it's not out yet. I'm hoping, because I mentioned this a lot, I really want somebody to make one. I don't really care who it is, if it's Safari, Schleich, Papo, Collect Day, Rebor, Beast of the Mesozoic, you name it, I'm going to buy it probably. I just want, really whatever brand, if you can't tell, I just want a Nanosaurus figure. Really, and all you're really going to have to do is make a T-Rex and throw some fuzz on it, is all it's going to be. It's not going to be that hard of a figure to make, and with the popularity of Prehistoric Planet, I'm hoping it gave us the push we needed for somebody to make a Nanosaurus figure, so please somebody make one if you're watching this video. And then the Carnegie Collection, more recent Spinosaurus. There's a few versions of the Carnegie Spinosaurus. There's the one that's way less accurate, and then there's one that looks very similar to the Planet Dinosaur version, and I really love that figure. I just haven't been able to spot it for a good price on eBay or Mercari, but if I ever have the chance to get it for a price that I think is reasonable, and if I could find one for probably under $80, I would probably buy it. So, if you got one, you want somebody to buy it, and you want to see it get reviewed, list it, and you'll probably get somebody to buy it. Hopefully it's me, and hopefully it doesn't sell before I can get it, but I would really love to get that figure, and hoping I can find it on eBay or Mercari for a good price. But considering how that's went before, I don't know how likely that is. And then the Field Museum other Sue variant, there's 4 figures in the Field Museum line, at least that I'm aware of, and that includes this Anatotitan, the Torosaurus, and then there's 2 versions of Sue. There's one with the open mouth, which is the one I have, and then there's the one with the closed mouth. That's the one that I need. One of those actually recently went on eBay. I put in a max bid, and I should have put in a higher max bid, but I didn't, and I didn't get the figure. I put in a max bid for like $25. It ended up selling for $26, and I'm sure that person was going to go higher than whatever I had in my max bid, but my highest max bid was $25. It ended up selling for like $26, and I should have just had a higher max bid. I blame myself for that, but I definitely think I could somehow get that figure for a better price. Well, I hope at least. And that's not like an end of the world figure, because I already have one of the versions of Sue. And it's not as much that I want that figure, but it's more that I want to complete the set. And that's why I'm not willing to spend a ton of money on that figure, even though I kind of regret it because I could have just been done with the Field Museum. But, it'll make it more exciting whenever I do get the figure, kind of like the Albertosaurus figure. And then I have the Carnegie Collection Diplodocus. This is a figure that might be coming. We'll just leave it at that. Because I was going to say, out of the last 2 figures that were mentioned, both were recently on auction, and I missed out on one, but I kind of mentioned already which one I missed out on, so you kind of know which one's coming. And I will say, that figure has been recently listed a decent amount of times on eBay, but there was one that was a little cheaper that wasn't in the best of shape. There was one that was listed that was in really good shape, but it was a little higher than I wanted. And then one went on auction, and I won, luckily, finally. So, can't wait to review that figure. That figure looks awesome and is amazing. It's huge. Don't know where I'm going to put it, but I'm definitely glad to get it. And then, pretty much any older Safari LTD or Carnegie Collection figure that I don't have. I'm trying to complete both those sets, specifically the Carnegie, because the Safari older line, there's some figures I really want to get, but then there's some that, I'll get to complete the set, but really that's it. But the Carnegie set, I really like almost all the figures in the set, and I would love to complete that set. And I really want to go to the Carnegie Museum, just because, I've been collecting this line for so long, even when I was really young, so it would be awesome to go to that museum, because the Carnegie Museum has played a big role in my life unintentionally. And And some figures I can guarantee will be reviewed in 2023 as long as nothing happens to me or this channel, fingers crossed. Will be the Safari LTD Androsargus. That should have been reviewed 2 weeks ago, if we're being honest, but just haven't got around to doing it. But the next individual figure review can 100% promise will be that figure. The Field Museum Torosaurus, that's a figure I really wanted to get, got it, and just haven't got to reviewing it yet. The PNSO Lambeosaurus, great figure. Probably that Hadrosaur video I mentioned will come after that, but I definitely can't wait to review that figure. The Papo Limited Edition Spinosaurus. Out of this little group I'm mentioning, that's probably the last one I'll review out of this little group I'm mentioning, but I think that's an awesome figure. And really the only reason why I'm even waiting on making that video is because I'm worried there's going to be another Spinosaurus paper come out and outdate that video again. So, you know, I guess it's kind of whatever with Spinosaurus at this point. Then the Beast of the Mesozoic Triceratops, the sub-adult one. Safari LTD Vaugoceratops. That one really should be next in line because that was like as far as getting a newer figure, reviewing it, because I reviewed all those Safari figures from that one lot and then it was just kind of going down the list. So that one should get reviewed really soon as far as chronological order of getting figures and then reviewing them. But I kind of have quit doing that. I'm just kind of reviewing whatever I feel like at this point, or if something new just pops up. And then I forgot to put this one on the list, but I've already mentioned it. The Hammond Collection T-Rex. We'll definitely be reviewing that one. Just, you know, it's the problem with reviewing that one, honestly, is going to be finding a space where I can record it, where you can actually see it. Because in my current recording space, all you'll be seeing is the feet. And speaking on just some other upcoming videos, there will be the Dinosaur Drawings of the Month. That video usually would have come out a few days ago already, but with me having two, like, end-of-the-year style videos, that kind of got pushed back. And then there's going to be a lot of Safari LTD figures, which I think I've already kind of hinted at in this video. And then we're going to go over that Schleich mini set I got for Christmas. But overall, I think this was a great first year for the channel. Not only for the awesome figures I added and reviewed, but overall. And I really want to thank you all for that, because I mentioned it before, this channel is fun to record on as it is. But whenever I see you all enjoy it, it makes me so happy. So yeah, I want to thank you all once again for all the tapping on this channel. And you know, I had some big lofty goals for 2023 as far as subscriber goals. So, you know, if you aren't subscribed, I would very much appreciate it. But yeah, thank you all so much once again, and I am out.